So to continue all of the Game of Thrones hype, I have my brother here who has never seen a single episode of Game of Thrones. And as you guys know, the Game of Thrones finale was last night as of recording this, a couple days ago. Fresh and new. He's going to watch it. It'll be the first episode of Game of Thrones he ever watches, and maybe the only episode of Game of Thrones.
Probably the only one.
This show is amazing.
I'm not willing to give 70 hours of my life to a show right now, so yeah, probably would never. I'd rather watch Lost again or something.
Maybe this will make you want to watch it.
Probably not.
Maybe. Possibly.
Probably not.
Probably not. Why haven't you watched it? The biggest show of possibly all time.
Yeah. Well,
I do think it's the biggest show.
So here's the thing. I've always kind of done this, and I feel like this kind of happens to everyone, where when you have two big movies or shows going at the same time, and you watch one of them, but you don't want to watch the other one because it's almost like a competition.
I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
So I've never watched Lord of the Rings. The reason is because Harry Potter movies were coming out around the same time. I watched Harry Potter. I didn't watch Lord of the Rings. Yeah. It was like you either watch one or the other. And it always had seemed to feel like that for at least for me. But anyway, so that's the reason.
Okay, that's.
I feel like that's a good reason though. Like
it's not the best reason. Since then I've actually become like I refuse to hate something for the sake of hating it.
It wasn't.
It's not that. It's not that. But also like if something's you've always had this. If something's really overhyped, you don't watch it.
Yeah,
like Stranger Things. You'll probably never watch Stranger Things.
No,
I've kind of
because
accepted that.
Too many people try to get me. You know what's funny is no one ever mentioned Cobra Kai to me ever. I knew of it, but like I didn't. No one tried to get me to watch it, and I watched it. I loved it. Same with the 100. Like all the shows I watch, I watched. I fell into it. Whereas like I'm not gonna watch Game of Thrones because people are telling me to watch Game of Thrones. I'm not gonna watch Stranger Things because people are telling me to watch it. I'm not gonna watch Fargo because you're telling me every day to watch it.
Which Fargo's not. It is a very beloved show with a small audience.
Yeah, so I'm never gonna watch those shows because you're trying too hard to get me to watch it, and I'm just gonna annoy you.
That's facts. That's true. That's 100% true. All right. So my second question for you is, what is your knowledge of Game of Thrones? I know it's been going on for 10 years now.
That's crazy.
Even though it's only been 8 seasons, they take these ridiculous gaps, which is why I waited so long to watch it. So I didn't want to wait for the final season, which, funny enough, I caught up 20 minutes before the series finale aired live.
Well, hold on. Why didn't you watch it?
Because I wanted to, basically my reasoning is I didn't want to invest all my time into a show if I knew I had to wait for 2 years. Because I started wanting to watch the show when season 7 ended, and I watched the first 15 minutes. But
why didn't you watch it up to that point?
Well, see, I did. I watched the first 15 minutes of the first episode when season 7 came out, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop. Like, I'm gonna wait till.
What about like
season
when season 2 was out and 3 and like.
Back then.
I didn't really know of it till I got to college.
Honestly, I think my reason was kind of similar to yours.
Because there's HBO, so also we didn't have that.
Yeah, having access of the show was an issue, and also
that's another big reason why.
Back then, I was a little bit more. I like The Walking Dead. I don't know what this Game of Thrones thing is. I think it was lack of knowledge. What is your knowledge of Game of Thrones?
Well, when someone says Game of Thrones, what I picture in my head is it's dark. There's a gray castle, and a lot of dirt.
Yeah, no, not even close. It's funny because you're not even mentioning the snow. Like winter is coming, which they say a little bit too much.
Yeah, I've heard that a million times. I still don't picture
because
that.
Once the latest season of Walking Dead, it's now winter,
and
so there's snow, and it reminds me of Game of Thrones.
And the only other thing that pops up in my head is Jon Snow.
Jon, you know nothing, Jon Snow. And then Daenerys. It's really Jon Snow and Daenerys are the two main. You know the actress who plays Daenerys. But
the only reason why I know Daenerys is because of the podcast I listen to.
Okay.
The only characters I ever knew before I listened to the podcast is Jon Snow. I knew that there was dragons.
Yeah.
And there was a wedding.
Yeah, and that's the Red Wedding, which still...
Was that an actual wedding?
It was a wedding.
Okay.
It didn't last long.
I wasn't sure if it was an actual wedding.
You know how many times there's a wedding in this show? And
apparently there's a Frozen dude, too.
There is, yeah. You said Ice King earlier.
Yeah,
you said
like Ice King.
You said like Iceman or something. It's the Night King, which also... You'll actually not be seeing the Night King in this episode. Do you know Tyrion?
So some of these names I've heard over the last, ever since the season started, because I listened to Collider Live. You guys don't know what Collider Live is? Seriously, go. It's one of the best podcast radio shows that you'll ever listen to. So I watch them, and every Monday they it's a spoiler review. I'm like, well, I'm never gonna watch the show, so I keep on listening. So I've heard, obviously Jon Snow, whatever you just said, Tyrion. Bran
is Peter Dinklage.
I heard
Bran is also on my list.
Oh, I thought Bran was Peter Dinklage. So I've heard.
heard.
I've heard Bran, Cersei.
And I'm sure you've heard Sansa then.
Yes.
Sansa. We're gonna watch this episode. The first episode he's ever watched of the show.
Yeah.
He literally doesn't even know what the show looks like. So this is gonna be completely fresh.
I don't know what's about. It's about a throne, and they all fight over a throne.
The title
I've seen what the throne looks like because the NBA does promos on it, and they put like LeBron James in the throne.
Yeah.
So it's this big giant silver thing that's like
swords. It's made of swords.
Oh.
It is.
Yeah. I didn't know it was made of swords.
Pointing.
I thought it was like pointy rocks or something. I don't know.
It's like
it's made out of swords.
Spiky
Seriously?
rock. Yeah. It's called the Iron Throne. So it's made of swords. It's melted down.
I thought it was built out of like metal and rocks.
No, it's the Iron Throne. It's made of swords. So let's go watch this episode.
All right, that's gonna be interesting.
1 hour later.
Did you understand any of that? I'm curious. I think it does a really good job at like wrapping things up.
Yeah.
But from perspective of not knowing what happened before.
I feel like I just watched the end of a first movie of a trilogy.
Okay. I think it feels that way because you don't know what they've all been through, but I do see how it is kind of like it very easily could be the end of a season and it can continue.
Yeah, it could definitely continue. I'm confused at a lot of things. But
did you enjoy it? Did you think it was a good episode of a television series?
I got a little bit bored.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a slower episode.
Yeah, it's definitely a slower episode. I'm kind of confused on where Jon Snow went.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 were all Starks, right? Those were the Starks?
Yeah. That last song is called, like, if you were to download the soundtrack, it's called The Last of the Starks. That piece of music is incredible.
So they all split up.
Yeah. And so what's kind of funny is in the series premiere is basically all the Starks at the very beginning of the show all separated in the first episode. So Sansa went to King's Landing to marry Prince Joffrey. Arya went with Sansa to King's Landing, and then eventually they ended up parting ways. And then Bran was knocked out of a tower and was paralyzed, and then Jon was sent to the Night's Watch, which is basically where they send people who they don't know what to do with. It's like criminals and people they just banish them. That's
where he went back.
He went back, yeah. So he's basically put... That's one of the issues I have, is he was basically put back to where he was put in season 1.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really go anywhere. Which is not a bad thing for Jon Snow, because he really, when he was sent to the Night's Watch, that's where he really, like, he fell in love with someone north of the Wall. He did all these great things. He became the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, who eventually became the King of the North and all of that. So going to the North is really, he belongs in the North.
Who became Queen of the North? What's her name?
North? Sansa.
Sansa, and who's the other sister?
Arya.
Okay, so and Arya went to like finish the map of the world.
She's basically Columbus.
Okay, right. And so
she's also become a meme.
So Sansa, and then Sansa became Queen of the North. Bran is the king of the
6 kingdoms.
Okay, here's my thing. Without any context of any of these characters, I feel like Bran is a complete loser.
You're not wrong. See, so, what I said in my review is Bran is kind of known as being the most boring character in the show. Especially
he was pretty boring.
He wasn't always that way. He became the Three-Eyed Raven, which is probably the least interesting storyline of all of Game of Thrones. And they gave him the throne.
Yeah, I don't think he deserved the throne.
No,
just from watching this episode.
Yeah.
I feel like the person the what's her name who got Queen of the North?
Sansa.
I feel like she should have just controlled everything. And like Arya,
yeah.
Like she could do whatever. I didn't really
She's always been independent.
I didn't really.
So
yeah,
I really like how she.
I didn't. She can do whatever. But like, I just feel like how is Bran not dead?
See, it's crazy. Like I know in Chris Stuckman's review, he said because Bran was knocked out of the tower in the very first episode of the show, right?
Yeah. So how wasn't he killed? Like, how does a dude in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Survive all of those seasons of war?
A lot of people probably think
just hide.
See, a lot of the memes, which I'll show you later, is you know when you're in a group project and then someone doesn't do any of the work and then they get all the credit.
Mm-hmm.
That's Bran. Yeah.
100%.
That's 100% him.
Well, whenever you talked, I thought I was gonna fall asleep.
Yeah. No, he wasn't always like that, which is frustrating because, you know, even though he was paralyzed, he went on this journey like Tyrion said over north of the wall and became the Three-Eyed Raven. But he was a really interesting character to where he can kind of see everything. He can see the past. That's how they found out that Jon was actually a Targaryen. As soon as he became that mantle of the Three-Eyed Raven, he became super monotone and boring.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it was fine. Obviously,
I liked it better the second time watching it.
Obviously, without any context, it's hard to know if you liked it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like even after watching it, like the episode was fine to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't get why everyone hated it, but at the same time, I
Here's
don't
the thing.
know the build up. So
I can kind of explain the hate for it, which I do want to talk about.
Well, but like for me, it's like I don't get why Bran became the king. That's stupid.
For the memes, that's why.
And I feel like it was like a joke, and I feel like Jon Snow and the Queen of the Sansa, whatever.
Which also is really funny because throughout the entire series, when the North kind of was trying to become independent, all the soldiers were always like King of the North, and it's hilarious how they always yell King of the North, and at the very end it's Queen of the North. It's the greatest. Like I really like where everybody ends up besides
Bran.
Jon Snow, and Daenerys. I think they really did a disservice to Daenerys, this character. I think, especially if you were, sticking with it. So
she was good.
She was basically how she was set up is... Okay, let me give you an analogy.
A lot of bad things happened to her.
Let me give you an analogy with Harry Potter, okay? So imagine if, Voldemort was taking the castle. He got... at the point where Hagrid is carrying Harry, and Voldemort pretty much has all these people in the courtyard as basically prisoners, like, come onto our side or die. And so imagine if Harry, he got away, right? And he got away, the Voldemort got a hold of a bunch of his people, and Harry had the choice. He can either use the killing curse to kill Voldemort, or he can light the entire place on fire and kill everybody, including all his friends and all these innocent people. That's basically what Daenerys was. Daenerys was the chosen one who was supposed to go get the throne and save the world from the clutches of Cersei. She was the chosen one. But instead, which was a complete abandonment of her character.
It's kind of like Anakin, too.
A lot like Anakin, too. Just the Harry Potter
right
angle kind of works, but it's just if you imagine like a character being like Harry Potter, because Anakin had moments of and also it's very similar to how abrupt she became evil, to how abrupt Anakin became evil. But the thing is, she was such a character that you rooted for, like you wanted Harry Potter to win, right? And can you imagine at the very end he just kills all his people and he's supposed to be like the king of everything afterwards? It's like it's such a betrayal of her character because she's tried so hard to get to the throne and she got it. Like they rang the bells. That's why the previous episode was called The Bells, and they mentioned a few times in this episode. They rang the bells. They surrendered, but instead she just killed. And then she became. I compared her to General Hux in The Force Awakens when she's talking over her army. Yeah, it's like why would you turn like that character
Hitler type of thing?
But she's never been that before. Yeah.
It's just, but then at the last second, it was pretty easy to kill her, which
I don't mind that scene. I actually really like. It's a nice moment between the two.
Now.
But like the Drogon the dragon should have.
That's one thing I didn't get why the dragon just destroyed the throne and not Jon Snow. Like
there's some things because technically he's a Targaryen and dragons are like part of the Targaryen.
Oh, so you couldn't kill him?
We don't know. See, the thing is, at the very first season, Daenerys walked into a fire with the 3 dragon eggs, and it's supposed to be like the dragon eggs need to go into fire to be born, and so. The fire burnt down. She was in the fire with the eggs, and when the fire went down, she was still standing unharmed with 3 dragon babies instead of 3 eggs. So if you are part of that bloodline and you are good and you are supposed to be chosen, you don't burn by fire.
Okay,
so if Drogon could have burned Jon Snow and he walked out unscathed, then the dragon picks up Daenerys and flies away. That's what should have happened.
Right. I just don't want. And
then it would have given reason for Grey Worm not to kill him. It's like he kills the queen, they take him prisoner when he was slitting throats at the beginning. Why wouldn't he, when he's a diehard follower of Daenerys, why doesn't he just kill him? So it just there's a lot of logical just things with that twist of making Daenerys evil. It's very abrupt. Like if you make Daenerys evil, it could have worked, but they needed more episodes.
Like I said, I don't think I'm ever gonna watch Game of Thrones.
Would you be willing to like watch one of the battle episodes?
Maybe
another one of these?
Maybe. But yeah, I was curious at like why everyone was kind of like freaking out about it and why everyone was like so upset about it. And I get it because I don't know if they're complaining about how Bran ended up, but that's my complaint.
Yeah,
is like I don't get why he. But again, I haven't seen a single episode. Sansa started the way she was talking. I was like, okay, so she deserves it. Like she seems to be like the leader of the group,
and she completely changed from season
even
1.
Peter
she
Dinklage's
really
character deserved it more than Bran.
Here's where I would say maybe that's why Bran accepted it, because he's not gonna be king at the end when he said, okay, now you kind of do your thing, and then Bran goes away out the door, and it's Tyrion is the one who's making the decisions. So I think really nobody would accept Tyrion being on the throne, like he said. It's like half the people hate me from betraying Daenerys, and half the people hate me for following Daenerys.
He can kind of be in Bran's ear type of thing.
Not just in his ear, he's straight up leading.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of the point.
Like it.
Because I think Tyrion is really the king, but nobody would accept him having the crown.
Because I was gonna say, like, he deserves it. Sansa seemed to deserve, even though there wasn't much of like. I don't think we even saw Sansa until that scene. So I had no idea. But the way she talked, it felt like she deserved. Like she was gonna get it. Like to me, I thought she was gonna get it because of the way she was talking, the way like she was leading
herself. Yeah.
And I also thought that maybe,
when the guy stuttered, he's like, "Just sit down."
Well, and then I even thought that Jon Snow would possibly get it.
Mm-hmm.
Still,
the queen.
So like
I'm able to be fine with it, especially after watching it a second time. I feel better about it knowing that Tyrion is there truly leading. I think that helps.
Yeah.
Like, the two frustrating things is how they treated Daenerys, which I think is the biggest mistake the show has ever made. Although, I do think it could have worked if they had more time. I really do think that's a cool... Because the show has always done stuff like that. So,
she should have turned, and then they should have done a whole last season after that.
I do think that could have worked. And you have the North, and then you have Daenerys.
Right.
And you'd still have either Sansa, and then you can kill Jon in the end. So maybe they can take each other out.
One last, like, war between the North versus her.
Yeah.
Essentially. So that's what they could have done.
It's just...
Because it happened so fast.
Yeah, like, Daenerys has never been a character.
So she went bad at the end of episode 5?
Yes. About 20 minutes before the end.
That's too fast.
Exactly.
It's too fast.
They teased it a little bit in episode 4. It's like her seeing Jon with a bunch of people, and everybody's like cheering Jon on.
It's literally how Anakin turned into Darth Vader fast.
There is one thing, because technically Jon is a Targaryen, right? And so he would be the rightful heir to the throne because he's male and she's a woman. Mm-hmm. So it kind of teased that angle, and some people got mad about that. And like that's when the anger started. Is there's a few things that people started freaking out over no reason I don't think was warranted, and then the whole twist thing happened, and then people got even more angry, and then the whole thing got escalated to a point where it's insane.
It was like they wanted to put a twist just to put a twist.
That's what it feels like. It feels like a Shyamalan movie, not in his prime, but like The Red Wedding, great twist. It's like that episode was insane. Nobody was expecting it, but it actually served the story and it made sense. This really took a character that everybody loved. Like Daenerys was one of my favorite characters. There's 3 characters I loved. It was Arya, Jon Snow, and Daenerys, and Tyrion. So 4 characters.
I like the idea of someone turning bad.
It just felt like turning bad for the sake of turning bad. What this season does, like, because you were mentioning the Night King before, is the first 3 episodes of this season was, taking on the Night King and getting rid of that, the war with the dead is what I called it. And then there's the war against Cersei, which is the last 3
that didn't even, like, none of that mattered. It was more about, what happened literally in the previous episode.
And it was
like
about
for me
the last 20 minutes of the
last
episode.
You could have made the episode. You could have taken movie. Yeah, you could have taken episode 5 and 6 as the first movie that like I've ever seen, and I'd be like, oh, it's a pretty good movie, a good twist at
and you'd wrap it up with Daenerys and
you would wrap it up with Daenerys going bad,
and Jon taking over the North with Sansa, and them fighting would be the next 2 movies.
Right. Well, it would be maybe even the next 2 movies, because you would pretty much in the second movie you would have Daenerys, right?
Yeah.
Daenerys win. And then
maybe have Jon killed.
Maybe even have Jon killed. Yeah. Or Jon killed.
Because he would be the rightful heir to the throne. People would turn against Daenerys if he's alive.
Right. And then the third movie, whatever the final, So like they could have like to me. Like
and
that's what it felt like.
Queen of the North, it'd be Queen of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, I mean that's what it felt like. But I mean, yeah, I get why people like it, just not my thing. But I did. I thought it was I thought like I don't know. I mean, I thought it was fine.
I do think it's a fine finale. It's not anywhere near one of my favorite finales, although I haven't finished too many shows. This is one of the only shows that I finished all the way through because I know it has a definitive ending.
Like I said, my biggest complaint, the one thing because like it was fine to me. Like I thought it was a solid episode of Game of Thrones. The only thing I get about all the complaining is Bran.
Yeah.
But like again, I haven't seen any other episodes, so I don't know.
And also his remark of like, oh, why I came all this way? It's like, why do you think I came all this way? It's like, because he can see the past and the present. Because you're in a
wheelchair?
No, well, because he can see the past and present. He basically, what's frustrating with that also is, I want to say this because I didn't mention in my review because I just thought of it, is basically, he told everybody about Jon being a Targaryen, which started all of this conflict, which kind of sparked Daenerys' turn to be evil so they can get rid of her and so Bran can take the throne. So basically, it's Bran's fault that 1 million people died in King's Landing, because if he kept his mouth shut, Daenerys would have stayed good. They would have taken King's Landing. Daenerys would be the queen of the 7 realms, and Jon would be by her side with Tyrion and all of that, and everything would have been happy. So I blame Bran for everything that happens in this season.
It was the master plan.
It is the master plan.
It was his master plan.
As a guy who sits in a wheelchair
and says
for
nothing.
8 seasons.
Well, to me, he says nothing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Leave in the comments below if you made it this far into the episode. If you want Brandon to watch another episode of Game of Thrones, I think I'd throw Battle of the Bastards in there.
Which episode?
Hard Home is one of my favorites. Or The Watchers of the Wall. I think those 3 episodes would be great. If you guys have any suggestions, or the Red Wedding episode.
I like this type of video, like watching something with no context, like watching the end of something with no context. Especially now that I think
it would help, like rewatching the series, knowing that Daenerys turns bad. I think you would see the signs better, and you'd be more accepting of her turning evil. I think it's the pure shock factor that makes everybody mad. So I think since
I didn't mind that she went bad.
Yeah, I know,
because
it's just you didn't see the signs, so you never thought that would happen, and I think that's why people are mad. But now that you know the signs, I think if you rewatch it, or if you watch the series for the first time knowing that, I think you might accept it better, and you might actually like it.
Because that's the thing. I accept that she went bad because I just figured that it was building up.
Yeah. It's just the problem was it didn't. So I think even I want to rewatch the entire 8th season because I think it'd really help. So thanks guys for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next video, review, or whatever I decide to do. So yeah.
Later.
Also his channel.
Yeah.
I never plug your channel. You never plug your channel. That's the problem. I blame you.
Well,
as I blame Bran. Also, his name is Brandon Stark.
Awesome.
It's always your fault.
I would be a better king. Just
you probably would.